This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
New Schools for New Orleans, along with New Orleans Public Schools and the Kyle Institute, are excited to announce the launch of a new digital tool on the data dashboard. New Orleans Public Schools, 20 years later, a timeline of recovery, transformation, and growth. The tool provides data, information, and context on the past 20 years of K-12 education in New Orleans, the changes that occurred, and the outcomes these changes helped produce. Visit nolapublicschools.com/K20 to view the tool and learn more.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. America's top general says the U.S. bombed Iran's Fordo nuclear site after 15 years of study. General Dan King confirmed the strike hit as planned, using vents to deliver bunker-busting bombs.
The pilot stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight."
But intel suggests Iran's nuclear program may only be delayed by months. California hate crimes rose nearly 3% in 2024, with over 2,000 incidents reported. Most were racially motivated, especially against black residents. Attacks on Jewish, Latino, and LGBTQ+ communities also rose, while anti-Asian hate crimes declined for the third year. And Walter Scott, co-founder of the legendary R&B group The Whispers, has died at 81. Scott passed away Thursday at his LA home after a long battle with cancer. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
To my super producer, Nyra Sanders, and our co-host, Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, New Orleans.
It is Friday, and I know everybody's excited to get to the end of the week. I don't know what your plans are this weekend, but I'm certain mine includes some version of Matlock I'm going to watch. And this is the last weekend for crawfish. So, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I went to get crawfish last week, and my guy said that weekend coming is the last week. So I'm already on the books to get my crawfish. I don't know what y'all doing, but I'm going to eat some crawfish and watch some Matlock this weekend. What you doing, Will?
Now you've changed my plans. I didn't realize this is that time.
It's the last weekend. I mean,
I'm going to have to call around.
Yeah, you're going to have to go get you some.
Yeah, I'm going to have to call around. I am going to go see my daddy.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
And I've been delinquent on my household chores. I need to get some of that in.
Happy wife, happy life.
I think we got a
happy
Omega,
spouse, happy house.
Yeah, all that, and I think we got some kind of frat get together. So the Omegas on Sunday, I think.
Okay.
So
that sounds good.
Fellowship.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to start off with a little easy thing to get us started because the block is about to get hot because we're getting ready to talk about and if you want to call in and join the conversation, it's 504-582-9422. Did you make it out to the highly anticipated New Orleans mayoral candidate face-off? Did you make it out there? Did you catch any of it on a live stream? Do you feel like you got straight answers from the candidates? Do you have a better understanding of which direction you want to go in after hearing directly from the candidates? And I guess a question to you, Will, do you think it is equitable to only feature 3 candidates when the field of candidates is larger?
Well, let me put it this way. The Democrats and Republicans nationally decide what they want as parameters, and the presidential commission previously decided what they would accept when they would have the larger number of candidates, then a smaller number, and then they would change those requirements each time. So since Vote was hosting the forum last night, and it really wasn't a debate; it was more of a forum. Ask a question, each candidate asking. What they decided was that each candidate to participate had to have filed a campaign finance report, and not all of them have, and have had a long-term engagement with the organization. So in other words, even if we didn't endorse you for whatever else before, you've been before us, you've come before us, or you are now running for mayor and we've never seen you before.
So do you have to
So
fill
I
out the
think that's
campaign finance report before you qualify?
No,
I'm just asking to understand.
There are campaign. If you're doing campaigning, you have to file a report. You're supposed to file a report. Now, some people don't file the report, or they miss the deadline because they aren't ready and don't have their finance stuff together. Now, two of those candidates were there last night, and that's Ricky Twiggs and Renetta Collins. So they were meeting and greeting the folks, and they were in the room to hear the questions and I'm sure take notes. And because they got in early enough, Tyrell Morris, the former 911 director, was not in the room because he got there too late. So he wasn't the only one turned away. It wasn't because he's a mayoral candidate. It was because he got there too late, because people came and packed that room, and it was standing room only. So I don't know how long he stood out there, but he was kind of peering in from through the glass door, like some other folks, and he may have left after that. So I think it's reasonable to set this up. One of the things that I hope moving into the future, whether it is Vote or WBOK or whoever else, is that we'll let the public know what the parameters are. So if we're hosting something and we want anybody who says they are a candidate, that's okay. But if there are some parameters, some requirements, let us know what those are, and then we kind of get an idea of what to expect.
Well, I mean, you described it as more of a forum and not necessarily a debate, but the article also says that they took occasional jabs at each other. Each of the candidates were vying to convince the audience that they would be one to most effectively expand affordable housing, curb homelessness, mend the city's beleaguered infrastructure, and tackle a host of other entrenched issues. Helena Moreno is quoted as saying, "I believe you worked too darn hard to be treated this way by the city of New Orleans." Again and again, she blasted the absent leadership of current mayor LaToya Cantrell. And then Oliver Thomas is quoted as saying, "I know what government looks like when it works. And when it doesn't work, I'll fall for street drainage," as he invoked his 3-decade career in local government. And Arthur Hunter is quoted as saying, "We need to start treating people as people," referring to the city's homelessness crisis. The message reflected what polls and voter interviews have signaled for months. In a city weary of rickety services and leaders viewed as inept at mending them, voters seem poised to gravitate towards candidates they believe will set New Orleans on a new path. I guess my question would be this. When you can say something as bold as the city is weary of rickety services and leaders viewed as inept at mending them, all of these people in some shape, form, or fashion have been in governmental leadership positions.
Actually,
so are we calling them inept at the same time having them vie for a higher position in our local government?
Actually, that's one of the points that Arthur Hunter made last night.
Okay.
He addressed that this way. He was like, all of them are responsible. He said all of them are responsible. So I have not been a part of this, and it's ridiculous with this mayor, city council stuff that's been going on, and I'm not going to have it. And when I'm elected mayor, I'm going to pull all this together. We're going to work together, and make this city better.
Well, the reason
so
why
I'm summarizing what he said, but
the reason why I said what I said is because whether he's been in city council or not, he's been a judge in this city.
Sure.
One of the issues that continues to come up is this idea that the judicial branch of our government isn't actually doing what it's supposed to do, which is why we have state officials now coming in targeting our judges, talking about some of them are not hard enough on crime. We know crime is a huge issue for the city of New Orleans. So even though he may not have been in a city council position, do you believe that he's been in a position to affect the outcomes that we're seeing in our city? And to call it inept leader, I'm only basing my question off of what this article says. It says leaders viewed as inept at mending them. So if we view our leaders as inept at mending them, and all of them in some way, shape, form, or fashion have been in position to affect lived experiences and the outcomes that we see in our city, then how are we going to sit and think that it's okay for them to then apply to do the biggest job in the city if they're inept, according to the article, at their current jobs? That's my question. That's why I say words matter. Like I don't understand where that idea comes from. Leaders viewed as inept at mending them. Who said that? Like, is that a poll somebody did or something? I don't know. I just want to know where that comes from, because I'm very, very sensitive about the way folk view leadership in New Orleans, because I believe it's a part of a larger conversation that folk are forcing or trying to force upon us as if we don't or cannot govern ourselves. I believe we have people who have some solutions and some answers to quell a lot of the ills of our city. I believe there's too much infighting for folk to hear each other, and everybody want to be responsible for the solution when we all could come together and put our heads together for a solution. But to say that our leaders are viewed as inept at mending the issues of the city, and those same people are the people vying for the top spot, I don't know, is that counter intuitive? I don't know. Let's see. Good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. Ms. Gibson?
Good morning.
Oh, yes?
Hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How are you, Sharice?
Yes, good morning.
I'm sorry?
Good morning to you guys.
Hi,
Good
Sharice.
morning,
How
good
are
morning,
you?
Madam President.
I'm doing well. It's a great day, especially given our event yesterday. I'm doing wonderful.
Well, that's what we're talking about. And we want some perspective from folk who were there. What did you glean, or did you glean anything that our listening audience can benefit from as it relates to the forum that took place on last night?
Oh, no, actually, I was not there for that in particular.
You had the New Orleans Association of Black Journalists event.
Oh,
Okay.
That's what you had. That's where you were.
So what's the news?
Yes. First of all, thank you guys for having me on here. Yesterday, New Orleans Association of Black Journalists announced their 2025 Legacy Award honorees and our scholarship recipients, and I'm just thrilled and honored that we can bring this in for a third year. And we announced really to our New Orleans Association of Black Journalists members that the organization has doubled the amount of scholarship recipients while tripling the amount of scholarship money awarded from previous years. And that is due, obviously, to hard work and dedication from our members and sponsors and the goals that we try to reach in the community. And, I'm excited because I'm talking this morning to Will Sutton, who is one of our Legacy Award honorees this year, which is congratulations to you, Will.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Who are the others?
And we do have a few other award members, Legacy Award members, including, I don't know if guys are familiar with, or well, you should be really, Fernell Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
Fernell Chapman has been a trailblazing news anchor. He's been a trusted voice in journalism, and he's back in New Orleans. We couldn't meet with him yesterday because I called and he said, he was really already, he still helps his alma mater, St. Augustine, St. Augustine, but he's still helping his alma mater. So he had work to do still. He's boots on the ground already. We're remembering Andre Trevine. who obviously has been a New Orleans legend and holds such a legacy in journalism, one that has lasted for generations, speaking about the work that she's done, especially, I talked about it yesterday, her conversations and all of her stats on air with Eric Paulson were of legend. And Sabrina Wilson at Fox 8. She's a veteran reporter. She's known for decades of really just impactful local news coverage. And last year we introduced the Unsung Hero Award. And this year's recipient is Willie Wilson. And if people aren't familiar, Willie Wilson is the first African-American news photographer at not only WWL-TV, but across the state. And he reached that feat after starting at WWL-TV as a janitor and then going on to have a very long career as a photographer for WWL and covering some historical moments here. So those are our Legacy Award winners. And I'm so excited to let people know that we also have people accepting scholarships from us from many different universities, Nicholls State, Louisiana State University, Dillard University. It's just a testament to the hard work that our organization has done. And I know that as we continue, we'll probably continue to help more and more kids who want to get into the journalism field.
That's great. I'm happy to thank you all for the honor and blessing, the recognition. I'm very happy to hear about the students, always about the students and the future of journalism, communications, and media, and the fact that the NOABJ chapter has doubled the amount of scholarship money and scholarship winners this year is great. When is the event?
The event is Saturday, October 4th. It'll be at the Cannery. This is our third annual Jazz Brunch, and it is our major fundraiser of the year, so we can continue to raise those scholarship dollars. So I'm super excited. The tickets go on sale next week. It's going to be wonderful. We do music, we do food. It's a gathering of Black journalists in the community, and it's an opportunity to talk about the things that we need and what we need to do to support journalists as they grow in their careers.
Well, I appreciate you joining the conversation this morning. I didn't know that I was going to be talking to you, but it's always good to talk to you and to hear about what you have going on. And so if you ever want to come back and let us know what's going on your end as it relates to NABJ, or just pop in and give us your perspective on the news, we'd appreciate it over here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Of course, an honor to speak with you both.
You're welcome. I appreciate you, Sharice. Have a great one.
All right.
Good morning, Pop. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, Dr. Wise and Will.
Good morning. Good morning.
I know I have a question. You know I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I just ask the hard questions. I know everyone have a right to be at whatever race that they wanna claim to be. They can even deny their own race. But these days, everybody want to be white. See, that seems to be the race, the super race. But I think I have a right, as a Black person, to question any candidate, what have you done for the people, period. But, okay, not only what you've done for the people, but especially what have you done for my people since you've been in office. That's what I want to hear. You know, if you've been in office 20 years or whatever, and you only did something for a certain race of people, and all of a sudden you got a city that's predominantly Black, and then you want to hold a top position as mayor, why should I vote for you?
Yeah. I guess that's the question of the day. Like I was referencing this article that was written as it relates to the forum, and I'm always curious as to how thoughts are how do we arrive at a thought as bold as leaders viewed as inept at mending them. I really want to know I wonder if there's a poll out there that I don't know about, because at the end of the day, to me, it's a collective issue that the city is having.
Yes.
And a lot of folk are responsible for the collective failures that are going on. But I think that I'm very sensitive about messaging that goes out like this, because I know that there's a larger conversation that is happening in terms of painting our city as one that cannot take care of itself. And I'm going to push back on anything that says that, because I do believe we have people in our city that has the answers to help us move in the right direction. And to paint everybody as if they're inept, I'm going to take issue with that. And I really want to know where it came from. So that's why we were talking about that article this morning.
You've been in office 20 years.
Yeah.
You haven't done nothing for my people but criticize the mayor, and now you want to hold the top position in the city, and they got a lot of us foolish enough to want to put that person in an office.
Yeah.
Well, I guess they figure we don't have no sense anyway, so we're not going to, a lot of us are not registered, then we're not going to go out and vote so they could tell us anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So
well, there have been polls, and so I'm sure Finn's basing this on.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Who they poll? Well,
I'm sorry.
Did they poll you?
No. You know how polls work. I mean,
I know.
Polls. Any legitimate poll doesn't ever include everybody. And so there are methodologies that they use to determine.
I'm well versed in methodology, and that's why I want to know what poll they're pulling this from. Because again, data matters when you make such a bold declaration like that. Because we know that when they want to get a certain answer, they go to a certain part of the city. I know that, and they know I know that. So I'm gonna ask that question each and every time somebody writes an article and think just because they wrote it and it's printed that makes it fact. It does not. So I want to know, you talk about my city, where whose opinions are you based in this ineptitude on? I want to know that. I want to know that. Because is it the same people? Is it the same people that fund recalls around here? I want to know that, because that makes me understand which way we're leaning, right? If we're going to be equitable, it requires you to give us the information. And so when you make that's a bold declaration. I want to know what you're basing your information on. And when we talk methodology, you need more than a 500-person sample to tell me anything is statistically significant enough to make a conclusion. And that's me talking. That's what I want to know. And I like your question, Pop, when you asked Will, did they poll you? Because guess what? They didn't poll me either. And I'm certain they didn't poll you either, Pop.
An insult.
So I want to know
I
who they
think
polling.
it's an insult to want my vote. And you haven't done jack baloney for me.
Yeah. Look, Pop, I got to go to break. I love you very much over
All
here.
All right. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Y'all have Pop. Listen, we got to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about it. Attorney Ken Jones is going to be here to talk about politics and state government on the other side of the break. Let's jump into it. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat, brought to you by Lowe's.com. With AI booming and platforms like TikTok and YouTube, the barrier to entry for creatives looking to share their content has never been lower. Ty Randolph is a longtime media executive. She worked for Kevin Hart's Heartbeat Media Company and serves as interim consulting CEO at Rock the Bells. She talked to Bloomberg about how today's tech is impacting the creator landscape.
You have this real rise that's happening with creator empowerment, and now there's this big accessibility, right? There's more personalization and control, and that is big for studios and for even distributors. But then you have this, real battle from an IP and ownership perspective that's akin to a Napster-like moment in the music industry.
While creators have more cheap but highly capable tools than ever before, Randall says we're still learning how it'll impact the creator economy, and especially creators of color. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies to same item. Current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at Lowe's.com/lowest price guarantee.
Staples presents That Was Easy.
So, I was taking my side hustle full-time.
Bold move, my friend.
And I needed to find everything in one stop.
Like finding Bigfoot riding a unicorn.
Yes, so I hit the Staples Easy button. Staples had everything for a new office and print services for signs and brochures. Plus, Cindy, the Staples associate, helped me find the best tech for me.
Wait, no drama?
No, Staples made it easy.
For the products, services, and experts your business needs. Staples.
That was easy.
In-store, online, and on the app.
Hey everybody, it's Graylin Bryant Banks.
And Kimber White Dupree.
From the front porch, y'all. You know how we do. Every Monday is Moving Monday.
And Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday.
And y'all know we have nothing but bad cheering coming through here on Wednesday.
But stick with us. On Thursday, we travel.
That's right. And Friday's Free Your Mind Friday, so get your brass up.
Something on your mind? Want to get it off your chest?
Holla at your people. WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to.
All day long.
Connect with NOLA Public Schools. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X for the latest updates. Sign up for District Digest, our official newsletter where we share district achievements, celebrate student successes, and keep you informed about our vision of providing a high-quality education. And don't miss our school board meetings. Watch in person or live stream on YouTube. Stay informed, stay engaged. Visit NOLAPublicSchools.com today. Again, that's NOLAPublicSchools.com.
Get ready, New Orleans. Join us for the inaugural Blessed 26 Golf Classic, July 5th at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course, 6514 Congress Drive. It's a 4-man scramble format with a 9 a.m. shotgun start. Enjoy great food, music, and a chance to win a brand new car. Register now at blessed26.ticketspice.com. Save the date, Saturday, July 5th for the Blessed 26 Golf Classic at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course. For more information, please call 504-284-9985. See ya on the green.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Back. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Nyron Sanders, and my co-host, D. Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning.
And right now in studio, we have with us Attorney Ken Jones. Good morning. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning,
Good morning.
So we're going to talk politics, right? And since we're going to talk politics, I know there's a report that you want to touch on as it relates to the state of government. But we were talking about this highly anticipated mayoral forum hosted by Vote, Voters Organized to Educate. And it took place on last night. And it was a packed room. It was so packed that one of the mayoral candidates didn't even make it into the room because he arrived late as per what was reported. But the other individuals who are running for office for the mayoral seat, they were also in the building. They just were not on the forum. They were in there to watch it. And there was one question in particular that was asked that Will and I we were discussing, and it related to, Will, what was that? The governance.
Do you support city-owned utilities for gas and electric?
So I didn't hear. It was hard to hear, but I didn't hear Judge Arthur Hunter's response. But I did hear Helena Moreno. She said yes and no, and then she started to respond as to why she said yes and no. And then Oliver Thomas said it was complicated. And so I wish we could hear more. Like, I don't know if it was the way the speakers were, but it was hard to hear the responses. And did you glean more from their responses than that?
No, because at that point, if I remember correctly, they had moved into the lightning round.
Mm-hmm.
So in lightning rounds, you're not supposed to expound. You're just supposed to give your one word or your very quick response and then let the other person respond. So the way that was set up, it wasn't, okay, let me explain.
Okay.
They were supposed to move.
Well, let me say,
let me just say this about something like that. I'm glad that we're having these forums so something like that can come up. It's live and in person. It's in front of a whole bunch of people. And then you don't need to wait until October 10th to ask somebody, what did you mean?
Well, especially when election
you can
year
ask
is
today,
11.
what
Yeah.
did you mean that is complicated? What did you
Yeah.
mean, yes and no? So it gives something that voters, the public, can latch on to and say, let's talk about that. What?
Well, what I will say is this. The phone line is 504-582-9422. If either of those candidates are listening, because, you know, we have candidates, potential candidates calling in to the show now, and that is fine with me. I want them to call. So if one calls, all of them could call. 504-582-9422 if you want to expand on your yes or no, or expand on your it's complicated, or Judge Arthur Hunter, if you're listening, I didn't get to hear what you said at all. So if you want to share that with me, I want to know, because I think when you answer a yes and no to a question, and you answer it's complicated to a question, I think people are waiting to understand your stance on that. So to Will's question, to the question that Will was talking about, that they answered in that manner, what do you think about that? Do you think the city should control, what is it, public utilities? That was a question?
Yeah, and
instead of corporations?
Yeah, so let me just go back to what was supposed to happen.
Mhm.
And the reason you didn't hear much more from Arthur Hunter, is because he took the guidance seriously and he gave one word, yes. So his answer was yes.
Okay.
And that was it, because he thought it was truly a lightning round and going to move on. So
Okay, so he did say yes to
He
that
said
question.
yes.
Okay. And then you said Helena Moreno said yes and no?
that is correct.
And then Oliver Thomas said it's complicated.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think about that? Is it complicated?
Yes.
So explain to us.
Well, being a city manager, I have not had utilities, but my colleagues all have utilities in their districts in Maryland where I worked, and also in Pennsylvania. What I'll tell you about that is the city, in our case, we have a hybrid system where you have Entergy that actually runs, maintains, does the billing. When we were kids, there was NOPSI. You would go downtown, pay the bill, go to Woolworths and Crest. And I know I'm dating myself a bit, but that was kind of the thing that you did as a kid, right? Folks would take you downtown. But today, with the hybrid system, it's hard because you also have to maintain that grid. You have to pay for it, and if you did not have a third party to do those things at this point in time, with the way complications are in terms of regulation and compliance that you have to make, it's difficult. I'll say that. And then the state of our utility after Katrina, the weakness of the grid, the fact that we need more power to come in, more power generation. Do you really want to pay for that? Do you want to have the bonds to pay for those sort of things to be let versus a private entity doing it? My real answer, which you didn't ask, but I'm going to volunteer, is deregulation and allowing multiple other utilities. Now, we know Entergy is the only Fortune 500 virtually that we have left here.
Mhm.
At one time, we had 5, 6, 7. We
Mhm.
don't currently. So do you really want to make enemies of them? Kind of tough, but we need relief, because when people look at these energy bills, ain't nobody happy about them bills. I'm a
Mhm.
miser, and I have a tiny 1-bedroom apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still $120 a month.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it is
Mhm.
complicated in that respect. Yes, if you own it all, you got responsibility for it all. And I don't know that in the way things are currently set, that we're really set up for that.
Well, so that's why it's complicated.
Very much so.
So can a new mayor and potentially different council uncomplicate that?
With a lot of money and a lot of time, I don't think 4 years is enough. If
Oh,
you
so it's
ask
that
me.
complicated.
It's that complicated. We'd have to build out infrastructure. Let's say we got rid of Entergy. We'd have to build out infrastructure just like a normal utility. Most cities and even counties have given up their utilities over time because the cost and the intensity it takes to maintain and modernize and keep them moving forward. But we got to do something better than what we are doing. That is true.
Okay, and we also asked the question, and Will gave us some context around how the 3 candidates were chosen to participate in the forum when the field for mayoral candidates is at least 6 at this moment. And Will share with us that they had to fill out some campaign finance reports to be able to participate. Is that?
Well, not to participate. If they had not filed a campaign finance report, they were not going to be selected for the forum.
But that means to participate, they had to fill out the form, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, you fill out the form separate from filling. You didn't do it for this forum. It's because you have a active campaign ongoing and you're following the state laws and all. So then the second requirement was to have a long-standing relationship with Vote. In other words, now that you're running for something, you just can't come up in here. We've never seen you before. So if Vote has seen you for 1, 2, 3, 4 campaigns before, if they heard you but didn't endorse you, if they did endorse you for something else, then they would consider that you had a relationship. So the way I read that second requirement is, if we've never seen you before, you're not going to be on this forum.
Do you think that is equitable for people who are vying for positions, who are new to politics or new to the city of New Orleans or just new to the experience, to block them out because they don't meet that sort of criteria, especially when you have folk writing articles calling folk inept anyway? So what does it matter if they're new or if they're old and they're vying for another seat? What does it matter?
I don't think it really does. This early in the process, I think you want to hear as many voices as possible. They are a private organization. They have a right to limit who they want, where they want, and how they want. So I can't say anything to that. If you ask me, would I do the same? No, I think I would have had the form and included anybody who was a declared candidate. Later in election cycles, you typically pare it down to major candidates. That is true. But this is so early on.
Yeah,
we haven't
the first
qualifying. So
yeah.
I would want people to hear all the voices, to hear what people have to say. I mean, platform them. Why not? I mean, there's space to do that right now. You know, the intensity is not so hot that you can't let everybody participate. You know, but keep it civil and have a very tight format, because you don't want to start I don't know what you would call it, but you don't want to have it out of control because you have 6, 7 people. A free for all, exactly. That's a good settlement.
No, I get that. I just, something about that didn't feel right to me, to have folk who have declared themselves for the position, right? And you don't even get an opportunity to address the public on a platform as large as Vote's. Vote that's a big organization as it relates to our political landscape. And so to not have the benefit of hearing from those people, especially when you're asking rapid round questions, like you don't have to have these long drawn out things. To me, I just want to know what the rationale behind it was. I understand front runners. I understand, you want to give people access to the people you believe that they want to see, but there are other people vying.
Yeah,
for
I
that
can't
seat.
tell you. I can't tell you I do the same, but again, I'd emphasize that they are a private organization.
Yeah.
They choose the platform, who they want. When
I
they
get it.
want,
I got it. And
so,
it makes perfect sense.
But what
when
it
you
does
frame
do,
it that way.
what it does do is it opens the door for other organizations to be more inclusive. It's still early on. We need to hear more voices, not less. We need to hear more ideas, not less, for the purpose of debate, and then we can pare down to what's really real and what people are really looking for and what they'd like to see and hear.
Yeah, I don't remember reading the requirements for Saturday's IWO forum, but I know one of the requirements was you had to be the candidate. You couldn't be a representative. So you couldn't...
And that's this Saturday coming?
No, that was last Saturday. Yeah,
So,
I went to that one. And so there were candidate representatives in the audience, but they could not take stage because they weren't the candidate.
I'm not mad at that requirement, but...
Yeah. So what I'm pointing out is different organizations have kind of different requirements.
Yeah.
And they set that requirement.
But I mean,
at
I
least,
get that
so.
because if I'm trying to understand what the candidate has to offer, I want to hear from the candidate.
Directly from the
And then
candidate.
you eliminate this idea that the representative can misrepresent the platform of the candidate. You want to hear from the candidate. I get that, but I get why they send representatives too, because they have to be a million places at one time.
Absolutely.
And you just want to be able to have your stuff put out there. But I get hearing from the candidate. What I don't get is if there are 6 people there, and again, I understand front runners, but you know, if we have such a distaste for our current leadership, then why are we not opening ourselves up to fresh voices and fresh ideas? That's just a question I'm having. And maybe we can answer, and maybe the other candidates will get an opportunity elsewhere. I just wanted to know what was the criteria to participate in Votes Forum, because vote is so important to the current political landscape in New Orleans. But let's talk about this.
And they'll be having another one next month, so there
Votes.
might be So there'll be different. There may be different requirements for that one.
Yeah. And let's hope. Let's just hope we can hear from everybody. But as it relates to this report, what's the organization that put the report out?
The organization is called the City Services Coalition.
Okay.
And it says it's for a safer and cleaner New Orleans. And there are a number of people whose names are associated with this, some of which you'll know. Justin Augustine, Sidney Bartholomew, C.J. Blige, Lambert Bosse. They don't say which lamb, but...
Big lamb or little lamb, we don't know which one.
They don't say which lamb it is. Carl Connor, Richard Cortez is on and on. Press Kavakov, Jay Lappery, and there's some other
David
names.
Marcello.
Definitely David Marcello is on there.
And what
Errol
organization
Williams.
is this?
This is City Services Coalition. So if you go to www.cityservicescoalition.com or .org, I can't remember which one it is, but it's .com. You will see the entire report. There's an executive summary.
More than 200 pages.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time on it.
Well, this is a report produced, by the way, by HRNA, Jeff Aben, our Corey Jeff, who was the CAO of this city, who I'm familiar with from land use, the world of land use and land banking throughout the country. Very bright guy, very good group. I will caution people in this regard. Reports are just that. They're recommendations as consultant reports. I have seen HRNA's reports in Pittsburgh when I was at the Redevelopment Authority, and it shook Pittsburgh up, and they followed it in a way that they should not have. Where I was at the Redevelopment Authority, I had to change virtually everything that they said because there are pieces that are missing. When I read reports like this by whomever produces them, I look for the differences in where they're comparing things to. They compared Baltimore, Chicago, New Orleans, some other cities. I've been in all of those cities, not as much Chicago recently, but Baltimore, New Orleans, of course, D.C., other places that were in that report. And they failed to mention that when they were talking about affordable housing, which was the only part I had to deal with, that New Orleans has a dedicated housing division. That's all that we do, dedicated housing and social services. Pittsburgh doesn't have that. And the Redevelopment Authority is kind of an arm that does all of that except the social services portion. They did roads, bridges, streets, and affordable housing. So being a veteran of that, when I looked at how they had changed the structure according to the report and was there seeing how it actually functioned, I had to change a bunch of things back because it was just not set for it to work that way. Now, some of the processes I did stay in line with because they were helpful. So the point is, when you read this, don't read this for every and all things. Read it to say, here are some ideas. The biggest thing that I saw about this is that they want to do a couple of things. They want to change the structure of the government. And if you go a couple pages back.
Which is one of the things that I was getting ready to ask you about. Two things stuck out when I was reading the summary of this.
Right. The executive summary is only 5 pages, but it don't
No,
get
the
too
summary
much
of the
meat.
major recommendations. One of them says, make the city attorney the city's lawyer, not just the mayor's lawyer.
That's already the case.
That's one
as
that
far
stuck
as
out
that
to me,
goes.
yeah.
But let me explain that when you talk about complicated. When having been a CEO, when you have a city attorney, the city attorney represents both the mayor and the council.
Right.
And that is a funny position to be in because all the city attorney basically does is give a recommendation about what they think is legal or not based upon the charter, and state and federal laws and how those interact. So in this case, Denisha Turner, who's our city attorney currently, who I do know in full disclosure, we were classmates and schoolmates, not classmates. She was a year ahead of me at Loyola. Denisha is in a tough spot because if she says something that the council doesn't like, or that the mayor doesn't like, the mayor just takes it with a grain of salt and says, okay, well, is there another way? We clearly see that the council is on a different footing for whatever their reasons.
And she's supposed to be representing both entities.
She represents the best interests of the city.
That's the way the job description is.
She represents the best interests of the city. So I don't know. These are more, to me, seemingly talking points than they are reality.
And the other one I want you to think
Quite
about, because
frankly.
we're getting ready to go on break, give the chief administrative officer of city government clear authority and responsibility to manage day-to-day operations of city government.
Well, now we're talking about changing structured government. What they want to change it in a charter where the CAO does not have to answer to the mayor. Basically changing our form of government from a strong mayor to a weak mayor.
Who would he answer to? The council?
They never made that clear, but essentially that's what they're doing. They also put in the caveat is they put some things in about civil service, but they didn't say how the CAO would be chosen. He's already chosen by confirmation, so it's going to be somebody.
My reading of the report is the mayor would be elected by the people.
Correct.
He or she would have the responsibility to fill the various positions, including the appointment of the CAO. However, what would change, based on this report, is the mayor appointment of the CAO does not mean the mayor can't say, I think this department head is not working, so we need to do something and make a move. Under this proposal, the CEO can make moves with department heads without consulting the mayor.
Yeah, there's no
Is that
requirement for the mayor to agree to dismiss a department head. Correct. And the day-to-day responsibilities, which are typically having to be agreed upon, to add on to your point, by the mayor, the CEO can just make those decisions without the mayor's input at all.
Well, listen, we got to go to break, and we're going to continue to talk about it. Miss Alicia, I got you on the other side. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
Hi, this is Cary Grant. Let's elevate every Tuesday through Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. as we discuss the community, the country, and the world, from politics to current events and sports. We look forward to your input and continuing the quality programming on your community station, WBOK. Join us every Tuesday through Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m. on Elevated Conversations, the Arnie and Cary Show.
Get ready, New Orleans. Join us for the inaugural Blessed 26 Golf Classic, July 5th at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course, 6514 Congress Drive. It's a 4-man scramble format with a 9 a.m. shotgun start. Enjoy great food, music, and a chance to win a brand new car. Register now at blessed26.ticketspice.com. Save the date, Saturday, July 5th for the Blessed 26 Golf Classic at Joe Bartholomew Golf Course. For more information, please call 504-284-9985. See ya on the green.
Hey, New Orleans, look for important changes to your natural gas service. This summer, Delta Utilities takes over for Entergy Gas with a Louisiana-born, Louisiana-based approach to safe, clean, reliable natural gas. No interruptions or rate changes due to the transition, just dependable service and modernized technology to keep you running smoothly. Get to know us at deltautilities.com and stay tuned for more later this summer. Delta Utilities, focused on natural gas, committed to New Orleans.
Welcome to Liberty Bank and Trust, where your financial journey transforms communities. Since 1972, our customized banking solutions power your dreams and fuel your community growth. Every dollar you invest with us circles back to empower more people, ensuring opportunities for generations. Join us at Liberty Bank. Together, we empower possibility. Visit libertybank.net to start banking with purpose. Liberty Bank. There's freedom here.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Friday, and welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Nara Sanders, and my co-host, Will Sutton.
Good
right
morning.
now in studio, we have with us Attorney Ken Jones, but we have a caller online, one Miss Alicia. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. You're on with Attorney Ken Jones.
Good morning, all. Dr. Wyatt, I'd like to send to you a copy of the Return to Splendor Manifesto by Press Kabakoff. In that manifesto was how they were going to make the new New Orleans, how they were going to keep us out, black folk out, and New Orleans East and the Lower Nine out. And they had to expand to pick up Gentilly because Lakeview was right next door. And in that manifesto, you're going to see how they did what they did. And one of the number one things for them to accomplish, how they're going to accomplish it, they take control over the boards, and they put people on those boards to do their will. And as you read it, you will see that that is how they've done the new New Orleans post-Katrina. This group, if you look at, because I've heard some of the names, these are the elites of this city. These are people who make well over $100,000 a year. And whenever Press Kabakoff's name is attached to something, this is nothing but a Return to Splendor Manifesto Part 2. So when I heard Errol Williams' name on there, I called Errol. What the F? What is going on? Why are you all teaming up with Press Kabakoff to make this his kind of city? And it just ticks me off. What I did get out of Errol was the fact that he was on to make sure that civil service was protected. And I think what is fair when you have people coming on and they're talking, bring the other party on as well and make them answer to the question. But what I can't stand people with hidden agendas coming before the people, and the people really don't know what is going on. And that thing that they're doing with Press Kabakoff is just another Return to Splendor Part 2. So I'm going to send you the first manifesto, Dr. Wyatt, so you can read it. And I would also offer that you all read it on air so everybody can hear what Press Kabakoff and his crew back then were doing and how they're going to continue it, because he wasn't too successful the first time because we fought them and we came back in New Orleans East in the Lower Ninth Ward. I'll hang up and listen for the rest of the morning. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Miss Alicia. I'll be pulling stuff up real quick when somebody mentions it. And it says, Kabakoff nurtured the idea of transforming downtown New Orleans. In 2010, after chairing a housing task force for Landrieu's transition team, he wrote a paper that he called Return to Splendor, but the critics accused him of favoring the wealthy at the expense of the poor. Have you read the Return to Splendor?
I have not, but what I can tell you is post-Katrina, during the planning, I was talking to the HUD officials who were in charge here because I happen to know them. Fred Tombar, and it was Gary. I can't think of Gary's last name. He was the other gentleman. They brought them in. Fred was Gulf Coast, but I was talking to Gary because Gary was doing more planning stuff. And in the process, I impressed upon them how the Lower Ninth Ward could not become a greenway. That just wasn't going to happen because it's the highest percentage of ownership of African Americans in the country, quite frankly. And also, there were several other things that they wanted to do. That is definitely out. What I will tell you is that code enforcement was used to keep people from rebuilding. Properties were demolished left, right, and sideways that should not have been demolished. I represented a number of people doing that, that they did that to, even until recently. So here's the thing. Back to the report. What you have going on, they want to change civil service, make civil service so that you would have HR departments seemingly in each of the various larger departments, from what I can glean. They didn't say that exactly, but that's what makes sense. And you can then fire and hire who you want when you want. Our civil servants, whether you like them or not, you know, and there are people like Marilyn Crump, Ms. Desereau, people who were in finance that I know, people in other departments who are long since retired. Please don't get mad at me, guys, because I'm not saying your names. But these people were the backbone for many, many years to make sure that things went straight. After Katrina, everything went south because you did not have as many of them return. And during the Landry administration, I'm picking on Mayor Landry because he did some good things, like I can tell you about all mayors. But you brought in a bunch of people who were not people that really understood the city because they weren't from here. A lot of them were Baton Rouge and from South Carolina and from God knows where in a lot of cases. And that institutional knowledge, that ability to understand what goes on in New Orleans, how it works, and where the bodies are buried in the history and how you got to something was lost. That has not yet been rebuilt. In the last 16 years, and I'm not knocking Mayor Cantrell or Mayor Landrieu, but there's a lot we didn't get back. You know, the city, in my estimation, is about 80% maybe as to what it should have been. And this is not new. You know, we're going through so much right now. You know, it's not new. We need to have a stable hand. We need to have a strong mayor. And mayors are going to differ. You're going to get ones you like more than others. They all have good points. They all have some negatives as well. But electing somebody who will not follow this plan, and currently there are some, I've heard some murmurings about this. You know, Councilman Moreno says, I'm going to go on nationwide searches. Well, if you're going to go on a nationwide search, let me recommend this to you. Bring people home who are from here, who have the expertise, like the planning director that came back. Public works guy that came back. Bring people from here back here who have the skills. We litter the country with talent. It is embarrassing. You know, we have riches of such the type. Bring them home, put them to work. I'm available. I want to work. I would love to stay home. But guess what? I got to fill jobs wherever people want to pay me. Mm-hmm. And to Miss Alicia's points, a lot of things she said were true, you know, in terms of that. And I wish somebody was here from City Services Coalition, but just for what it's worth, I have zero agendas except to say what I see.
Maybe you don't. Maybe you can't answer this, but sure. I have a thought. But here's my question: What return to splendor? Mm-hmm. What splendor are we talking about? Is it the same? Is it from the same school of thought about making America great again? Because what splendor are we trying to return to? Because if you're talking splendor in the historically black city of New Orleans, you know what splendor are we talking about? Bringing back the middle class that they decimated.
Oh, no.
Black folk, is that what we're talking about? That splendor? What
I think
splendor
the splendor
we're
talking about is the late 60s, very, very early 70s, before folk had a chance to really have some control of things. All these playbooks are not new, okay? And they want to have a figurehead mayor at the end of the day.
I'm just curious because I tell people all the time words matter to me. And when you say return to splendor, it makes me question what era of New Orleans are we talking about?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, New Orleans is unique in the sense that
is he from here? I'm sorry for the rapid questions. Yes.
I don't remember. I just know I remember the early involvement of the Cabacoffs is the Hilton Hotel at the foot of Canal, but I really don't know. And I worked in this building. I worked one floor underneath him and rode the elevator with him almost every day for a couple of years. Never asked him that.
Because I want to know, I'm going to find that out. But also, too, he made a comment where he's quoted as saying, I'm not an opportunist developer. I'm on a mission. And for somebody to say that, it's like I hear dog whistle when I read that because, you know, it's very much giving, which you say you're not trying to do. But I want to know what the return to splendor is, much like I would ask the current clown in chief, like what part of America are you going back for greatness? Because I need to know when you say these things what you truly mean. And I just read a little bit of the things and you know when the word urban comes up, it sticks out like a sore thumb because he's being quoted as some type of guru of urban development.
Well, not necessarily.
That's what the article called it.
I get it. But
yeah.
Press does multi-unit apartments and other developments of that type. He's very good at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But
You say, yep, you know him?
I know of his work.
Is he from here?
I don't know if he's from here, but he and his wife live here and have for a long time, and he's been involved in a number of things. I will say that the group for the City Services Coalition is not the Splendor Group.
No.
You know, so for instance, Miss Alicia mentioned Errol Williams. He's a part of the City Services Coalition.
Well,
so
he's on the steering committee.
Yeah, well, no. He was, yeah. So is former Mayor Sidney Bartholomew.
He's on the steering committee.
Yeah. So, I mean.
So is Carlos Zervanon, who is a school board member. He's on the steering committee.
Hold on. Let me make one point clear about that. Because there are other names associated with this.
I'm looking at them.
Yeah. No, more than this. There are other names associated. Everybody, just because their name is there, doesn't mean that they're in alignment with everything that was said.
Absolutely. That's part of where I was going.
I have seen some of these people personally, and some names that you don't see on this list. And I asked them, because their names are included as having contributed, I asked them, man, how could you line up with this? And they were like, listen, all I did, I participated by doing this or doing this. I am not backing solely the report. This report chooses to want to structurally change things. You would get mayor to mayor, different mayors do different things. No mayor wants to be a figurehead, first of all. And we were talking during the break, and very quickly, I'd like to say this because I know time is short. Very quickly, you have in Maryland, Prince George's County, the wealthiest county for African Americans in this country. You have several cities that have done this. And in doing this, and they took their strong mayor away, and then the council starts to erode, like we're battling right now with the council. They start to erode the powers of the mayor. Then all of a sudden, you have a hybrid-looking system, and nothing's working. And especially if you went to what they want to do with the CAO and do what they do with civil service, if you do those things, then you can rip out the leadership of the city. You create chaos because you can have a different manager. Some cities in Prince George's County have had 13 managers in 15 years. Or 17 in 15 years. No stability.
Yeah.
Even College Park, which is a bastion of stability for that model of government. No stability. Savannah, Georgia has not had stability because once you get a bad CAO or city manager, it is terrible. You can have the greatest mayor in the world, but that person runs the day-to-day business of the city. What you need is a mayor who understands what to do. You have at least two candidates who know what they need to do. I can't speak to Ms. Moreno because I don't know much about her. Arthur Hunter's run a large city department. Oliver Thomas has been steeped in government for years, worked with the departments, been inside of the departments for various reasons, have known how it's supposed to go. I can't speak for Miss Moreno because I don't know much about her.
But we do know she's been on the council long enough to know those things too, right?
Well, she should know certain things, but the question of how much and who inside of departments and how that actually functions, I'm not sure because the council's primary function here, which is why we've had the lawsuits that we've had, their function is to legislate and to appropriate, not to administrate and not to run.
We gotta go. I appreciate the breakdown, but I just want to be very transparent here. That's why I wanted to add that context about Helena Moreno. She has been on the city council.
So she should know. She should know some things. She should be functional.
Yeah, we don't want to put it out there as if we don't know that she's.
I'm not saying
there's no ineptness there. We want to make certain that we're very clear because again, WBOK is as far as I'm concerned in terms of this show has no dog in this fight. We want to put the people out there so that everybody knows who's running, what their platforms are, and allow people to make an educated decision on who they want to support for mayor. And every elected official, whether you're currently elected or you're prospectively going to be elected, you're welcome here on WBOK on the Good Morning Show to have this conversation. And that goes for Helena Moreno, that goes for Judge Arthur Hunter, Oliver Thomas, and all of the other folk who are vying for the mayoral position.
They all should come.
Everybody should come
and
have their say here
and tell
on
people
this
what you
platform. Got. Absolutely. So y'all stay with us. We're going to jump into more. After the break, we'll have Dante King. I know y'all know Dante. Dante is a a leader when it comes to this idea of dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion. And he's going to be calling in on the other side of the break. Y'all stay with us. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
WBOK New Orleans, home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
New Schools for New Orleans, along with New Orleans Public Schools and the Cowell Institute, are excited to announce the launch of a new digital tool on the data dashboard. New Orleans Public Schools, 20 years later, a timeline of recovery, transformation, and growth. The tool provides data, information, and context on the past 20 years of K-12 education in New Orleans, the changes that occurred, and the outcomes these changes helped produce. Visit nolapublicsschools.com/K20 to view the tool and learn more.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A new poll shows New York City's mayoral race is a dead heat if Andrew Cuomo runs as an independent.
We have Zoran Mondami. He gets to 39% of the vote at this point. Cuomo is at parity with Mondami, 39%.
That's pollster Bradley Honan of the Honan Strategy Group. Without Cuomo, Mamdani leads by 15 points. Mayor Eric Adams polls at just 13%, with Republican Curtis Sliwa at 7%. The Department of Justice is investigating the University of California over alleged race and sex-based hiring quotas in its UC 2030 capacity plan. Officials say the plan may violate federal civil rights laws. The university could face fines and damages if found guilty. And rapper Cam'ron is writing a memoir with Simon & Schuster in a $750,000 deal. The book will cover his rise in hip-hop and shift to media with behind-the-scenes stories from his life. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Friday. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. We're going to jump straight to the phone lines. Good morning, James. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. It's an awesome, informative show. I just wanted to point out that those three candidates that showed up last night, they all did not sound inept to me. They all sound like viable, strong candidates. It's going to be a tough race. Should be a tough race. I think that's what the city is demanding. I think we have more space and opportunity to ask harder questions. I watched it on somebody's live last night, which was thankful to that brother. I believe there's a link to it on YouTube if anybody wants to see it. I can't give you that link right now. I'm driving. In terms of the question that was asked, I missed Mr. Jones's answer for the city services, the utilities, the city that owns the services.
Yeah.
What was his response to that?
Well, he said it's complicated because I asked him because Judge Arthur Hunter said yes, Helena Moreno said yes and no, and then Oliver Thomas said it's complicated. So I turned to him and I said, is it complicated? And he said yes. It will take a whole lot of money and time, and 4 years won't do it to uncomplicate the structure as it currently is what he said. Am I correct?
That's correct. He did not say, he said we would have to create our grid, which would be monumental. So what would likely happen is we'd have to negotiate with Entergy and with Delta Utilities to say, we're going to take this over, and we don't want to start from scratch, but we think we can do better than you. So how much would it cost us to do? So you would probably start at a place like that, because to do it from scratch where There's already infrastructure all over the city. To create something parallel would be extreme with the cost. So you would probably work with what's there, but it's not yours. So you'd have to buy that.
So that was his answer, James.
All right. So the citizens are already paying this astronomical price to Entergy. I don't know if Delta is going to take over gas, or has already taken over gas. But
Delta's taking over gas July 1.
Okay. All right. So, the federal side, we couldn't get any assistance federal now anyway because of the orange dummy in the check. So, all right. Well, that answers my question. Thank y'all for taking my call.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Look, I hope that everybody is tuned in to what is happening as it relates to this upcoming election. Early voting is September 27th to October 4th, and election day is October 11th. I need you guys to please check your voter registration and make certain that you have not been purged, or if you need to register for the first time. We have a lot of folk who need to register for the first time. And please make it your duty to ensure that your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, everybody has a ride to the polls, because we don't want a ride to be the reason folk are not making it out to vote. And if you need a ride to the polls, please reach out. You can call the station and let us know you need a ride, but we need to make certain that we provide every opportunity for people to get to the polls. And I posed this question to Will and to Ken when he was here, as it relates to Press Kabakoff. So I searched it. There's an article that says, as of this article's print, he was 68. He's 68, and he's a New Orleans native who graduated from LSU Law School. He assisted his father, Lester, in turning a vacant Mississippi River cargo wharf into the Riverside wing of the Hilton Hotel. They talk about his wife, Sally Ann Glassman, who's a voodoo priestess and artist, and they built a 2-story house that is chock full of her art and art from Mexico, Bali, and Morocco. So I was trying to find out who he was, a little bit about him, because I think it's important to understand what people's intentions are for the city. And it says he's native to this community. That's what the article says. But anybody who says I'm not an opportunist, it's pause. It gives me pause. I wouldn't even say that about myself, because it makes no sense to say it if I know it's not who I am. I'm not saying that. But he's not an opportunist. He's just on a mission. That's what he's quoted as saying. Now, what that mission is, I'm not quite sure, because critics are saying that a lot of what he does favors wealthy folk at the expense of poor people. And that's a heavy statement to make. And, I want to know if that is true, Mr. Kabakoff, because, I have questions and I would like to have answers directly from the people who I'm questioning. So press Kabakoff. The number is 504-582-9422, because I've heard about this return of splendor a couple times, and I want to know, what part of the New Orleans splendor are we returning to? Because you're 68 according to this article. So in your lifetime,
Well, what year was that?
That's what I said. According to this article, I can this is 2013.
Yeah.
So he's a lot older now.
Right.
But again, I'll say it again, because I was looking for if he was from here, so I had to go find an article that told me where he was from, and I found one in 2013 that did just that. I like to know somebody that's clearly well above 70 at this point. What return to splendor are we talking about? What period? Because it's really giving MAGA to me. When I hear folks say "Make America Great Again," you don't get to say again without telling me what's the starting point. So when you're trying to return to something, that means we've lost our way, or we're not on that path anymore. So tell me, what part of the splendor are you talking about? Because I can remember a time when Oliver Perry Walker was all white. No black folk could go there, which is why L.B. Landry had to come to existence, right? So I remember that time, right? You know, I remember, you know, the time in the history of New Orleans where there wasn't a expressway going through Tremaine. You know what I mean? So what parts of the history of this city do you believe was splendor, and what are we returning to? That's what I want to know, and I want to know it immediately. So for me, it's given Make America Great Again. And I want to know if that's what you're aiming at, then say it with your chest. And if it's not, correct the record. But I want to know. I absolutely want to know. So let's talk even further about the report, because you have access to it, right? The report. And like I said, there was a number of things that jumped off the page for me. He's calling now. We may not be able to dive into the report as deep as we want to, because Dante is actually calling, and we're going to get on the line with him. But the recommendations that were made by the report, I'll just tell you what some of them are until we get Dante on the phone. One of the recommendations says reform the civil service system. The second one says improve the management and decision process, upgrade and centralize technology and innovation, require full transparency in city government and service delivery, improve cities' issuance of permits and licenses, and then strengthen coordination of city officials and agencies. Now, here's the thing. The recommendations on their surface sound like, yeah, we should do all of those things. But when you get into the meat of them is where you start to have the questions. So, you know, again, two of the things that jumped off the page to me was give the chief administrative officer of city government clear authority and responsibility to manage day-to-day operations of city government. And then the second one that jumped off the page to me was this idea of making the city attorney the city's lawyer and not just the mayor's lawyer. Okay. And so those were the things that stuck out to me. And I know, Dante, if you're listening, I want you to hold tight for me. We're trying to connect you. I absolutely want to engage in conversation with you, but until we could connect us, please hold tight. I'll get you on in a second. But those were the two glaring things that jumped off the page. And then one of them also said create a better performance culture for city government. What does that even mean?
You know what? Let's ask him to come on.
I did. I put the call out. I asked them. Any one of them can come. Whoever is responsible for putting this.
I got President's contact.
Text them. Text them. Ask them to call in. I have questions because I don't know what create a better performance culture for city government. Do they mean performance as in outcomes for city government? Because again, that's a nice way of saying it's inept, right? I guess. I'm gonna leave y'all alone because I just have questions. But I mean, you if you know press, text him, ask him to give us 10 minutes of his time, or anybody else. There's a whole bunch of people's names that are on here, and I know the folk who are watching. I know y'all saw me lean up when Kim was on, and he said not, and you amened it from over there when he said not everybody whose name is listed agree with the things that are in here. And it made me think of the folk who were the architects of dismantling public education as we know it in New Orleans. And you go to asking them certain things and they act like they didn't know all of that was in the bill when they signed off on it. That's what it's giving me. It's giving me, I signed my name, but I don't exactly know everything that was in the bill. Kind of like what the Republicans are doing with the big ugly bill. Well, I signed off on it, but I didn't know that was in the bill. Like, I don't want to put my name on something and I can't stand on what I put my name on. Your name means something. If you're going to sign your name to something of this magnitude, why would I sign on if I don't necessarily agree with the report? I don't get that. Like, your name is on it, and that tells me if I see recommendations and then I see your name, I'm going to assume that you support the recommendations that are being made. No.
I mean, I'll use your sorority and my fraternity as examples. I mean, I've been a part of Omega Psi Phi for more than 4 decades. I have not agreed with every single Grand Boss's decision.
Is your
or
name
my
on it?
chapter.
Is
in
your
it.
name on it?
I understand that, but basically, when you say on behalf of my fraternity, that means all of us.
No,
that means all of us.
I think that's a different sort of thing, because I understand Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated to be a national organization. I understand that. So things they're doing in Louisiana, I don't expect the Qs in Oklahoma to agree with what's going on with the chapter and so that's, to me, that's this is a report. This is a document. People's names are on the bottom of the document. To me, the names on the document, to me, tells me that whatever is in here, that you on some level, whether micro or macro, understand what's in this report. And when people have questions, if your name is here, you should be able to answer the questions based on the report that you saying that you helped put together. Because these recommendations didn't come from the whole entire city of New Orleans. They came from this group of people speaking to what they think is best for the city of New Orleans. I can say, this is jarring to me. My name ain't on here, so I'm jarred by it, and I have questions because I don't understand it. You're speaking on behalf of the city I live in. I live in the city of New Orleans. I'm a daughter of the city of New Orleans. So if somebody reads this that's not from New Orleans, they're going to say, Shanta, you, no, baby, I didn't help write this. I didn't help put this together, so I don't know where they came with that, because they didn't survey me or my family. I don't know.
But they didn't say they're speaking on behalf of New Orleans. They said they're speaking as individual folks who have come together as a coalition, government. And they were divided into committees and subgroups, and so there could be somebody who was asked questions about this because of their expertise. That doesn't mean they're part of that coalition.
Here is my point. Here is my point. If you synthesize a report and you had different committees and they all come together, you're not going to put my name on something and I don't know what's happening with the rest of it. If anybody's name is on here, should be able to answer to any of the questions, or they should be able to say, well, I wasn't on that particular committee, but such and such was on there. That's an answer to my question, and I will know that you're not responsible for this recommendation. That's what I'm saying. But the parallel you made in terms of your organization and mine, this is a national organization. We do things differently per city, per state, per chapter. So anybody in Greek life know that. But if this is a synthesized report, that is no different than an article you wrote. If you reference somebody in that article and I ask that person, well, what did you mean about such and such? And they can say, well, no, I actually was commenting on something else, and he's attributing that to they should be able to give me an answer. So if I ask Press Kopakoff about any one of these recommendations, he should be able to say, well, I wasn't necessarily in on the committee that came up with this recommendation, but I can tell you, you can talk to Carlos and ask him, how did they come up with that? That's an answer to me. I have answers. And one of the main answers I have is, how did this list even get put together? Because I don't see nobody, not one person, that represents the part of New Orleans that I'm from. Not one. So when you're talking about New Orleans, are you doing so for one part? Because to me, you should have somebody from every corridor of New Orleans, so that the whole tone of New Orleans is covered. You don't think? Is that not equitable?
Well, I think when you're putting
giving
together,
me recommendations for a city and each part of the city not represented.
When you're putting together a coalition, and especially when you're paying money, if there are people who are paying money to get the work done, then
you got to do what the money say do.
Well, you decide.
You got to do what the money say do.
My understanding of this group is it was based on people's individual expertise. They weren't intending to have my three neighbors be a part of commenting on this.
I don't like that. I don't like that because I'm gonna tell you why I don't like that. Because it trivializes what I just said. Because we're not going to talk about what three neighbors can't do. I saw three white women go into a meeting with a city councilman and was asking for a whole school to be insulated so it don't disturb their Zoom call. So let's act like three people can't make a difference, first of all. But no, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
I'm not talking about three neighbors. I don't see anybody from my neck of the woods on here that has expertise in the city of New Orleans. Not one from where I'm from. Not one of these people. Zero. And I'm certain if I get somebody from Gentilly to look at this and say, I don't know none of this. They don't represent my part of my city where I'm from. That's what I'm saying. Because what would be any different than having an Alicia Plummer on this list who represents the East, knows all of the political, like what qualifies them to create the steering committee is my question. And how do we pick these people? Because you say it's based on their expertise. I don't know not one of these people that come from my neighborhood or anywhere around my neighborhood. And there's a whole lot of expertise come out of Algiers. Algiers is a part of New Orleans.
Absolutely.
That's the point I'm making. I don't see myself represented on this list. So when you ask me about how to improve my lived experience, who's on there to speak for me? Because they don't have the same lived experience as I have. That's the point I'm trying to make. But Dante is on the phone, y'all, and we're going to jump on the call with him. And I'm certain Dante going to understand and appreciate the conversation we have. And hey, Dante, welcome back to the Good Morning Show. How you doing?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be with you.
Listen, and off the rip, I want to tell you, I got my books. I got my books, so
wonderful.
Thank you. And one of my friends is reading your book, and she told me to tell you that the book is amazing. So I just had to pass that off to you.
Please thank her for me. I really appreciate any feedback or insights I get from people because I wrote it for all of you. I mean, these were my own personal sentiments and my assessment. But, you know, people's reactions, I just never know what type of reaction people will have. So I'm very appreciative of that feedback.
So look, Dante, because we were having an issue getting you on, we got to go to break real quick. But when we come back, I want to jump into this report that found that abandoning diversity, equity, and inclusion could turn off emerging talent. As 76% of all workers and 86% of Gen Z say they're more likely to stay at a company committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's have that conversation on the other side of the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
Good Friday morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. It's 4 months until Election Day, and several candidates are vying for your vote to be the next mayor of New Orleans. And this morning, many are digesting the first public forum as we heard from 3 of the hopefuls and where they stand on several key issues. Some of the key concerns we heard from many voters was crime, road repairs, affordable housing, and the city's response to homelessness. Several people expressed satisfaction with the candidates' responses, saying what they heard last night gives them a new outlook. Organizers say only 3 of the candidates were invited last night based on a criteria. Governor Jeff Landry vetoes 2 bills that got the green light from lawmakers during the latest session. One of those was House Bill 463, which would expand insurance coverage to state employees and teachers for weight loss drugs. Governor Landry also struck down House Bill 581, which would have banned outdoor balloon releases. The governor says police would have faced excuses and finger-pointing from people to avoid meeting the bill's requirements. This morning, the Attorney General's office is looking into whether or not it's legal to require all New Orleans departments to be part of the same financial accounting system, and whether the council can give authority over the Orleans Sheriff's contracting. The clash coming in the wake of the Orleans Parish jailbreak and claims by the sheriff that she needs more money to fix plaguing issues inside the prison. Council members want the sheriff to use the BRASS system, which is the finance system most city departments use, but the sheriff's office does not believe that. The council says by doing those 2 things, there'll be better oversight and they'll be able to see what the real needs are instead of a constant blame game. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great day and a phenomenal weekend.
Connect with NOLA Public Schools. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X for the latest updates. Sign up for District Digest, our official newsletter where we share district achievements, celebrate student successes, and keep you informed about our vision of providing a high-quality education. And don't miss our school board meetings. Watch in person or live stream on YouTube. Stay informed. Stay engaged. Visit NOLAPublicSchools.com today. Again, that's NOLAPublicSchools.com.
Welcome to Chemical of the Month by the community scientists at Rise St. James. This month, we spotlight phthalates, chemicals added to plastics, especially PVC, to make them more flexible and durable. But there's more. Research shows phthalates may disrupt hormones, affect reproductive health, and contribute to environmental pollution impacting our communities. Join us as we explore how these additives shape our everyday lives and the world around us. For more details, visit risestjames.org. Empower your knowledge with Rise.
Have you ever imagined yourself on the sidelines of the big game, representing athletes in negotiations, working in sports medicine? We're calling all high school students interested in a future career in sports. The Starting Block, a program created by the family of my dear friend, the late chef Leah Chase, and by yours truly, Arnie Filko, is accepting applications now for our third cohort, which begins this fall. Participants in this prestigious program learn from the experts in sports administration, marketing, broadcast journalism, and more. Run in partnership with Tulane's Center for Sport, the Starting Block incorporates real-life experiences shadowing local sports teams alongside classroom instruction led by the best in the field. If you're a rising freshman, sophomore, or junior across the metro New Orleans area interested in a future career in sports, please visit thestartingblocknola.com. Thestartingblocknola.com now to learn more and to apply for our 18-month free program.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
And we are back. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. If you're just joining us, we are in conversation with the Dante King, extraordinary author, and he has a brain that you can't help but be attracted to. I love the way he thinks.
Oh,
And Dante, too. I absolutely do. I got Will looking you up right now, so he's learning about you. But let's talk briefly about this report, Dante, whereby we know, let's let the people know that stepping away from or trying to roll back diversity, equity, and inclusion is not good for business. Tell us why.
Well, I mean, there are statistics that show, for example, there was a McKinsey report that reported that companies in the top 10 quartile of executive gender diversity have a 39% greater likelihood of of outperforming other companies financially. So they perform 40% better in terms of their bottom line, just because of more representation of diversity. There was another study that showed, like, for about almost 20 years, there were financial indicators that proved that firms that were owned by diverse partners outperformed other companies at least 3 quarters out of the year by about I don't know if they stated a particular percentage, but I think it was roughly in the range within about 20 to 25% or something of that within that ballpark. So we have a situation where financially, economically, it is better to have diverse representation within organizations, and it's been proven. So, this is not my opinion. These are not my words, but this is, these are reports that have been documented.
So why do you think some leaders continue to view diversity, equity, inclusion as a social initiative rather than a business imperative?
Well, I think we have to insert a word that I use a lot in my book, which is delusion, because what you're talking about is people who are holding on to ideas that have been disproved. It's not like there's no evidence, right, based on the reports that I just cited to you, as well as other reports and studies that have been done that have documented exactly what I'm saying. And so people that are holding on to this idea that, diversity actually stifles performance in some way. And let's be very clear, the diversity that they're typically talking about has to do with non-white people. We're never talking about an equation. Whenever you hear those types of tropes or stigmas levied, We're never talking about a scenario that includes whiteness as part of the diverse equation. And I think we have to give an accounting for, in my view, and this is something that I study and analyze pretty thoroughly, but the nature and the reality of white inadequacy and white mediocrity and the way in which that stifles the bottom line within a lot of organizations and the ways in which it's not even studied or accounted for within this culture. And so we have to understand that, within the diverse equation, non-white people, and particularly black people, are required and expected to work 10, 20 times harder. And we really are never acknowledged or rewarded for the ways in which we work. We're just like, that's a reality for us, and it's something that we're required to do. But we never take a step back to celebrate and understand what that really means, because we are not robots. And the fact that we are required to exhaust ourselves and just kind of devote our finest energies and wear our bodies out because we're required to work effortlessly so hard, there's a tax. There's a black tax to it. There's a tax to our bodies, to it physiologically. But going back to my original point, it's very important to realize that because non-white people, and particularly black people, are required to work so hard, we are the reason many times that these companies are as successful as they are. I have worked throughout my career with many inadequate, many mediocre white people, and I'm wondering, when I reflect on those times, how much that took away from the bottom line, from the productivity, the overall productivity that was occurring within each of those organizations. So, my mind goes in a lot of different directions when we have this conversation. But thank you for having it.
Oh, no, listen, thank you for being here. In your book that I referenced earlier is entitled Diagnosing Whiteness and Anti-Blackness, because it explores the roots of systemic inequality. How do those deeper dynamics show up in today's workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, or the lack thereof?
Well, again, there's a hyper scrutiny that I talk about in my definition of anti-blackness that allows for this relentless, way in which we have been programmed to not only pay attention to what black and brown people are doing, but to be hypercritical about it. And so that plays out many times within the workplace because there are just infinitely unfair ways in which, black and brown employees are not supported. Under-supported, under-resourced, not mentored, not provided with the same type of belief and or camaraderie as other people. And so we are constantly just kind of fighting our way. It's not even a glass ceiling. It's like concrete, brick and mortar. And we're trying to plow through. And that, again, has an effect on our bodies. But I want to highlight in reference another book that I believe that I reference in my book as well. And it's a book by a Jewish guy by the name of Jonathan Metzl, where he says, and it's titled Dying of Whiteness, How the Politics of Racial Resentment is Killing America's Heartland. And he's talking about the ways in which white people are willing to prioritize their white supremacy and their racism and fascism, even if it means that that they have to compromise themselves or that they do compromise themselves.
Yeah, we watched that in the way they voted. We watched that in the way they voted. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So they're willing to commit basically a mass suicide of themselves by participating in the enacting of racist policies, racist practices that they too may suffer from, but their attachment, their addiction to white racism compels them to go along and do things that go against their own self-interest in order to keep resources away from black and brown people, or just because of the idea, not even the reality, but the idea that black and brown people may be benefiting and or excelling. They're willing to die due to their white racism.
Yeah. And I have a question I was thinking about as you were talking. When we talk about anti-blackness, do you touch on anti-blackness and black folk as it relates to black people? Like, do you ever touch on in any of your writings, any of your talks? Because I mean, you're all over the place nationally. You've worked at some of the top institutions. Do you ever explore the idea of anti-blackness within the black community?
Oh, absolutely. That's what my entire book is about. I start off in the beginning of my book, within the introduction, talking about the way in which I went on this journey, and I had to wake up to the ways in which I have been programmed to be a Eurocentric subject. We are all subjects of Eurocentricity, meaning that the orientation that Black people come through is a Eurocentric orientation. The word Black and the implementation of that word and the utilization of that word in our culture was introduced by European groups. Spanish, French, the English then took it. They changed it from Negre to Negro, and that's how we became Black. So even this idea of ourselves as Black people and not necessarily Ugandan or Ghanaian or Nigerian or some identity that aligns with the national origin, but to be attached to a color concept is a result and the development and introduction of Eurocentric groups. And they instituted that color and attached it to us for political purposes. And so to understand race and racism is to understand that these are political groups, that we have been made Black for the purposes of our denigration, because Blackness represented evil, it represented baseness, it represented everything bad within European culture. And we to ourselves, as Black people, come through a white orientation. Our whole identity is rooted in whiteness and white supremacy, which is why we as Black Americans only understand ourselves for the most part through one language, which is a Eurocentric language, when there are thousands of languages that exist around this world. And so we have to understand then that the education that we've been given, the religion that we've been given, the cultural orientation that we've been given, the ways that we've been trained psychologically is to serve whiteness, white people, white supremacy, and to go against ourselves, because to be Black in this society is to be associated with something that is derogatory and denigrating. And we all have that self-concept of ourselves and other Black people. And my evidence of this is, and I say this to any and every Black person, just sit around your family and listen to the opinions that they have about your other family members and members of the larger Black community. Most of their opinions are going to be derogatory, they're going to be negative, and they're going to be rooted in suspicion and denigration.
Listen, I could not agree more. And so when we think about this idea of performative diversity, equity, and inclusion, what separates the performance of it all from the real organizations who are doing the real work? Because I call it paper trophies, Dante. When they put the murals on the ground and they put the words in the end zone like the NFL did, but you're not doing any systemic changes to actually create equity within your organization. What separates the performance from the actual application of things that center Black and brown people?
Well, I think part of the performance that I see is, we want to have all of these pro-Black initiatives because we want Black people to get a part of the pie. But we behave many times just like white people when we do get seats at the table and or when we do get part of the pie. We don't necessarily go back within the community and invest and try to mentor and invest in other people. We get ahead, and then we feel like we've worked really hard. I mean, we adopt similarly the same types of attitudes as white people. And we talk about how we, our success stories and how we've done all of these things ourselves. And we don't realize that circumstances are fleeting. I tell people all the time, don't be arrogant. Don't ever become arrogant in your life, because if you become arrogant based on a set of circumstances, those circumstances can change, and therefore your arrogance can change too. But my larger point is that we say that we are for, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We want representation. We want the greater Black community to thrive and to be well. But is that true? Is that really true in practice? Because I witnessed a lot of the Black, with Dr. E. Franklin Frazier in his book, Black Bourgeoisie, I witnessed a lot of, when Black people become, quote unquote, successful by the standards and measures of whiteness in this culture, we behave and we become just like white people. And there's a book by this Black woman who's a dynamic sister by the name of Tracy O'Neill, and it's called The Exceptional Negro. And she talks about how, the upper echelon, the Black bourgeoisie, Black people, similarly to what Dr. E. Franklin Frazier was saying in his book, we begin to perform just like white people. So I see a lot of performative behavior throughout this culture within different groups, the Latinx community, the Asian community, the Middle Eastern community, the Black community, because I'm asking, what is our ultimate goal? And I think that our ultimate goal should be a transformative shift in our values, in our thinking, even in white capitalism. White capitalism will not be here forever. So anyone staking their claims in white capitalism, even talking about generational wealth, is just, oh my goodness, it's delusional. I mean, we have to understand, just from a historical perspective, that empires rise and fall. And I think where we are in our history as a country, as an American society, I mean, we are literally staking our existence on whether we can, hedge off other regions around the world from obliterating us. Our whole end game is how strong we can make our military, and it's not about the human beings that exist really within this continent and their well-being. And so what then should we be striving for as a society? Because the trajectory that we are on as a country is not one that is long-lasting. So, yeah, I have a lot of questions and a lot of things that I think about on a daily.
Dante, this is Will Sutton. Are you suggesting that we shouldn't use the word black, or are you just noting how it came to be and the idea of the European white supremacy?
We're 500 years in now. I can't come along and say we shouldn't be using it, or we should change it to something else. I'm just noting. Yeah, okay. I mean, the point that you made, noting how all of this came about and how it should compel us. It should compel us to begin to attempt to think about ourselves outside of a reality that was handed to us and given to us, and we've not ever considered on our own terms what an alternative reality could be and or look like without the presence and or influence of European people in our lives.
Now, you're younger than me, but I remember in the 1980s when, as a people, we started with African American. How do you feel about African American, which we created and defined? And some black folks didn't like that, and they still don't. But how do you feel about that?
I mean, the same. It's a conception, right? The whole conception of American is just that. It's a conception. That's a term that these people adopted, created, decided that they were going to call themselves. And, we as a subgroup said, we're going to acknowledge that we come from a different continent because we share ancestry predominantly with the people that come from that continent. And so we want to acknowledge that in our identity. So we're going to attach African to this concept of American. But again, it's all made up. So, whatever a person's preference is in terms of how they want to identify, that's up to them. But I do think that there is some value in understanding the history of all of these concepts and cultural belief systems and the psychology of even what it means to be an American, even attaching ourselves to this concept of citizenship. What does it mean to be a citizen of a country and land that was stolen from other people, that you then acknowledge was stolen from those people, right, and yet you're still proud to be a citizen of this place? I mean, I just think that these are some of the things that we need to be thinking about.
Well, Dante, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I keep inviting you to the city. I just sent a message. I just sent a message to our guy DJ over at Baldwin and Company, because he has these author series that he does, and I just texted him. I said Dante King would be perfect for your author series. So hopefully I can connect you guys, and you can come and be in community with the folk in New Orleans, because I think you have so much information and perspective that I think is refreshing and people need to hear. So I hope you're putting New Orleans on your calendar sometime soon, so you can sit in this chair and we can have a more robust, in-depth conversation, because I enjoy picking your brain. And thank you for being here this morning.
I would love that, my sister, and I thank you so much. I feel like we are just connected by the soul. So
And we
thank you.
are. And we are. And I'm going to see you soon, I promise. I don't want you to hang up because I want you to hold for Naira because I want you to give him your personal contact so I can have it. And I'll call you when I get off air so I can try to connect you and DJ.
Okay.
So just hold on for Naira and he's going to get that for me. But thank you so much for joining us this morning.
For sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. So listen, y'all, it's time for us to go to break. When we come back, we're going to close the show as only we know how right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
This is your news update for WBOK from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
It's a hot and humid Friday across southeast Louisiana with highs near 90 and feels like temps in the upper 90s. We've got a 60% chance for scattered storms this afternoon, so keep the umbrella close just in case. Looking ahead to the weekend, expect more heat, humidity, and those daily afternoon storm chances sticking around. Stay cool and stay weather aware. For the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. My co-host, Steve Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning.
And shout out to our super producer, Nyron Sanders. So we have a few minutes, Will, and I wanted to inform the listening audience as it relates to the Supreme Court decisions that will come down today. There's some blockbuster decisions that are going to be made today, 6 of them to be exact, and one is related to birthright citizenship. LGBTQ school books and online porn will be released in one final decision to drop today. The most anticipated is whether the court will allow the president to enforce his changes to birthright citizenship while his new policy is being litigated. The ruling could make it harder for judges to block any of the president's policies. Other decisions will determine if health insurers have to cover certain medicines and services like HIV preventative medication and cholesterol-lowering drugs, and whether a federal program that subsidizes phone and internet services through carrier fees is constitutional. Now, I really think it's very sick that something has to go to the Supreme Court, something as serious as HIV preventative medication and cholesterol-lowering drugs, because that tells me that this capitalistic society that we live in, they will make you sicker and sicker just to be able to create medicine that will help you get well, and then they price you out of being able to afford it, so you die sick and poor trying to afford the astronomical medication that they're creating to battle a problem that they most likely created. They create the chaos, and then they sell you the cure. That's what it sounds like to me in this country that we're living in. And then to have the audacity to put a decision in front of the Supreme Court as to determine if health insurers have to cover these medications. So you're paying for coverage, and then they can decide what they're covering or not covering. But you're paying for it nonetheless, whether you're paying for it in these high copays and deductibles, or you're paying for it because you can't afford it and you're sick and you're dying. You're paying for it one way or the other. We live in a very sick country. Somebody need to figure out how to create a cure for white supremacy and racism, because until we delve into that and try to fix that, every policy that's going to be handed down, every decision is going to be predicated in racism and governed by white supremacy. That's my opinion, Dr. Wyatt. It's not Will's or WBOK's. That's mine. I feel like that.
Yeah.
And it's just the idea of now you went from grabbing folk off the street who are here legally, attending colleges and universities, grabbing them off the street, putting them in internment camps, basically, because that's there. Because we don't know what we don't know where the people at, detention centers, wherever they are. You just plopping them into spaces, detaining them illegally. Judges are telling you have to release them. Like, who's compensating these people for the traumatic experience that they're going through, being locked away in a cage, unlawfully? Who's compensating them for that? And then you're still allowing government to label these folks as terrorists or MS-13 gang members, as rapists, and none of that has been proven by any modicum of proof. So the government gets to just say and do what it wants, to act as renegades, employing terrorists to police our streets, because that's what January 6th treasonists are. They're terrorists. And we're just expected to accept it. And then our leaders are going in front of our congressional leaders. They won't answer any questions. They're lashing out at the media for holding them accountable. We really live, this is not a democracy anymore. This is not a democracy. So where does this stop? Now he's attacking birthright citizenship. What that tells me is he's trying to see how far he can push the line.
You're going to push it in any way he can. As far as he can, for as long as he can.
Well, he's going to be coming for us next.
And he's going to push enough stuff so that some of it sticks. That's what he's doing.
But you don't want to push the fact that your wife is here on an illegal visa. How about you start with her? Show me that you're serious. Show me that you're serious about immigration. Put her back in where Slovenia. That's where she's from. Because she's no Einstein by any stretch of the imagination. And we can't even call her a model. She's more of a porn star than she is a model.
Ooh.
What?
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, they got in their feelings. They got in their feelings when Michelle Obama showed her arms, but we got to see her whole vaginal cavity online, and we gonna call her a model? I could have. Will, you could have gave her a pap smear as wide open as her body is on social media. So what do we call those kind of people? What do we call them?
Not Einstein.
Not Einstein. Because I mean, no. If this was a competition about nudity and not being able to cover yourself up, maybe she would be in a conversation. But they went into a tizzy when the former first lady had her shoulders out. This woman. You could know her biblically if you go on the right website. Okay? So what makes her Einstein? Now your wife is here on an illegal visa, but you have the audacity to snatch folk off the street and detain them unlawfully for months. And judges are telling you it's not right to release them, and you're defying judge orders, flying in the face of the Constitution, right? So when they gonna go pick her up? I want them to show me that they're serious. Wouldn't that send a real message about immigration?
Yeah.
Huh?
Well, they're not going to let
she's
that
here
happen,
illegally, right? And then to defend it by saying she's married to Donald Trump. I mean, is he an immigrant? I mean, because he was just born here, right? But his parents are not.
Absolutely.
So if we're going
Family
after birthright citizenship, does that make him a target?
Yeah. So this is going to be the importance of this particular Supreme Court decision. I do want to put on everybody's mind that there's a whole bunch of them coming today, but one of them affects us. And so that's Louisiana's congressional district that is a seat now held from Cleo Fields. So
it's held by Cleo Fields, right?
Yeah. So that district has been challenged, and this is going to determine whether this seat continues. It's not about who's in the seat. It's about black representation, voting power, and whether this was done in the right way. And it could determine whether the state can keep the map that was created, that gave us more representation in Congress. And this is one piece of a look ahead to the 2026 midterm elections. Because if we have 2 seats, that's better than 1 seat. And we deserve 2 seats. We deserve 2 seats. But that decision is coming down today as well.
Well, they said that the opinions will be announced in order of the author with the most junior justice going
Right.
first.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we're going to hear the outcome of these rulings. And it says the article also goes on to say that retired Justice Kennedy warns freedom is at risk in threats to judges. So the fact that this current administration is defying judgments and they're also attacking the bench. Retired Justice Kennedy says he's warning the country that freedom is at risk if we continue to allow judges to be threatened. And it's so crazy because a lot of these people are people that he appointed or who he felt like he can garner favor from, but now he's not agreeing with a lot of the judgments that are coming down, a lot of the decisions that are coming down. But like, be on the lookout for that, guys. That is happening today. But I also want to remind you too, we are about to be in the throes of really important elections here in the city of New Orleans. We have an election on October 11th. Early voting is September 27th to October 4th. You have a mayor, a sheriff, the council, assessor, the coroner, and your civil and criminal clerk of courts on the ballot, and there may potentially be some judgeships up. So please keep your ears and eyes open. Check your registration status. Make sure you go to vote. Take somebody to vote with you. Y'all stay tuned. Up next for the Front Porch with Graylin and Kemba. As far as the Good Morning Show, Dr. Ashanta White, Will Sutton, and Iris Sanders. We're going to see y'all next week. Happy weekend, everybody. This is WBOK, 1230 a.m., what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.